But you had to attend all those things, right? You could have said, nah, I'm just going to stay in bed and watch movies. You could have done that. But you didn't. So there was a direction. There was a purpose. Now the intensity part is how you really go after it. Your focus is your intensity, right? We talked a little bit about focus last week.
So far it's slide 1 and 2.
Slide 1.
Slide 1, all it says is...
Or I'm sorry, slide 2. Slide 2. Yep. See, Kayla's motivated already. She's got some intensity, some focus for class today.
I'm not getting a D again on my quiz.
For real.
Wait, hang on, you're skipping slides.
No. I'm skipping to the relevant slides. Okay, so behaviors and needs. There are 2 different types of needs. One is need, and the other one is want to survive. Need and want.
So am I writing this down?
Yep. When we want things, it distorts us and makes us selfish.
That's 2 and 6.
Yeah, 2 and 6.
2 and 6. Who wants to shoot the biggest buck?
Me.
Oh, all of you guys want to shoot the biggest buck. Nice. All right.
There was a nice buck that ran across the road when I was driving over here.
Yeah, there are a couple of nice bucks. If only somebody could just compound bow. All right, so there's 3 prominent needs athletes seek to fulfill. And I'm sure you can all relate and identify to experiencing challenges. That's what you need. Be accepted and belong to a group. And gain and demonstrate a skill. Know those. Know them. Yep. What are some wants that athletes have?
To be a bucket.
To be a bucket. They want to feel important. This will be an essay question. Write down some of these bullet points.
What did you say?
They want to feel important. They want to have minutes on the field or court. They want to be the star of the team without the practice. Can you be motivated by just showing up to a game? That's not accurate motivation, right? You might be able to beat some teams that way, but that's not true motivation. Status should be more important than skill. Know the cycle of motivation. So slide 10. If we enjoy something, we do it more. If we do it more, we get better at it. When we get better at it, we enjoy it even more. That's the cycle. Know it. Be an essay question. Observations for intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. You have to observe it, you have to ask questions, and you have to communicate. It's what you should be like as a coach. So know these definitions on slide number 14. We got that? You guys will be ready for next week if you guys can study those.
That's it?
Yep, for that part. And then you also have today's part. You rip. Okay. All right. We ended on this one. We didn't have time for the results. But before we enter in the COPE model, because the COPE model also goes into today's lecture. All right? So make sure that you're writing down control emotions, organize input, plan a response, and execute. These are essential to what we're talking about today. This is like the middle of the road. If you look at a spectrum, you see motivation, and then you have stress and anxiety. And the stress and anxiety are what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, in that middle road, the COPE model can be used to create more motivation for yourself, but it also can be used for how we're able to handle our emotions on a day-to-day basis. Also understand this, stress and anxiety, they're impacted by motivation a lot of times. So if you haven't prepared for something, like maybe you should have during the week, what happens when you get into a game and you experience something that you haven't prepared for? Your stress and anxiety levels go up, right? That's how it happens. So this COPE model, we're going to discuss a little bit later, and we're going to try and figure out our stress and anxiety.
Wait, where's that at?
What? The COPE model? This one right here? It's for motivation.
Oh,
What?
go back to the other thing you want.
This one? This
Where's
is,
that at?
okay, this is under files. And then you look for the PowerPoint called Stress and Anxiety. Welcome to Arousal, Stress, and Anxiety. Woo. Gonna take you guys on a trip. Now, I need to hand you guys your worksheets that you had done and completed last week. But before we do that, I need you guys to fill out the SAS test.
Oh boy.
Now, y'all said that you liked hard copies of things, so we're gonna do a little bit of this. What this identifies are a couple things, and we'll talk about them in a second. We're trying to figure out where your stress and anxiety comes from. Is it a trait or a state anxiety? What do you give me that look for?
I don't know.
Okay. All right, so state anxiety, and these are two things that are most important. Star them for the, hey, wake up, the test. State and trait anxiety. State anxiety is in the moment. Something happens in the game, you're not prepared for it, and then your anxiety, arousal elements are impacted. Trait anxiety is your actual personality. If you have a tendency to be a worrier, not a warrior, a worrier, then this is something that impacts you because you're always worried about everything. Obviously, no one in this room wants to be in that state every single day. We want to try and get out of that as much as possible, right? Especially as an athlete who's performing. Both of these two things, trait and state, impact our performances, right? And they impact it in most of the time in negative ways because we don't know how to cope or handle them. So there's low trait anxiety and there's high trait anxiety. And the high trait anxiety is where you get into a situation, you're experiencing failure, that intensity of that worry and that anxiety increases. Now, how many of you guys have known, or maybe you are the athlete, where this has happened to you? Somebody on your team or you has experienced a trait anxiety level that was really high. They either wanted to be asked to take out of the game, or they just continuously experience failure. Pretty soon you see their head drop, or they get so anxious that they are angry. Because anger and anxiety correlate together. Because anxiety is fear. Most of the time, anger is fear. And your body's reacting to anger, or that's what you're displaying from that anxiety. So if you have a tendency to be angry, most of the time it's because you're fearful. So, anger does not mean that we have to do bad behaviors. It just means that it's part of that process, right?
Right.
Right. Thank you, Samara. Appreciate that. Okay, so really quickly, these are the areas that we are going to do for this test. When your body experiences trait and state anxiety, especially this state anxiety is what we're going to be focusing on. That moment-to-moment pressure, those feelings of when you get in to the game, boom, your anxiety increases. All right? What happens is your body's reaction to that is called arousal, which is you get tense, you get clammy hands, you start sweating, you start hyperventilating. There's all kinds of symptoms of that. Okay? Then what occurs is what's called cognitive state anxiety, which means that your worries go up and down, up and down. I didn't do a very good job, so I'm gonna what? Increase my levels of anxiety, right? Somatic state anxiety is moment-to-moment changes in how you're able to handle and cope that pressure. Okay, degree to which one had a perceived control of state anxiety is how you're able to manage it. And managing it is what we want to do and the way that we want to seek. So, I hope. Oh, this is also a packet. I gave you guys packets today. I know.
With staples and everything?
Staples and everything.
Does it matter?
Hard copies and everything. What?
Can I use this?
Yeah.
Do we get our name on it? Do we need our name?
You need the name on the top of it. Mm-hmm.
Do you also want to give us pens too?
No.
You need to put my name at the top.
Yes. Okay, so before you guys take this test, look at the second page. You're going to do a total score of all of what you did.
I don't need one, thank you.
Fine.
Got my own, I was prepared. Thank you.
Nope, I was not prepared. I will own that.
Caitlin Roach is always prepared, though. Appreciate that. All right. So what you're going to do on the second page, please look at it. Add up your entire score, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is what's called a worry score. And what you're going to do is you're going to add up these specific questions. All right? Do what it says, just add up those particular questions. Same thing for the concentration disposition score. Add those up. The somatic trait anxiety score, add up those questions only. Does that make sense? Yes.
So are we counting each one as a number, or
Right now?
like 1 or 2?
Yeah. So you've got.
Would be
You mean like
2,
this?
3, 2 plus 3 plus
Yes.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
We have two of the same page on.
Yep. And there's a reason for that. So don't look at those. Oh, that's what was happening.
Oh. What does this mean? I just feel nervous in general
Like
about
now?
life, or
Or like,
Yes.
Or is it like right now or like?
Very
Right,
much so.
like right now, is there something that you're worried about?
I need to circle, underline, do you care?
What?
So do I need to circle, underline, do you care?
I don't care,
Okay.
as long as you can read it. Anybody else have questions? Begin.
So this is right now.
Right now, and then you have, I am concerned that I may not do well in competition as I could. That might not necessarily be right now, but when you're in the day of competition, what are you feeling during that time? So there's some day-to-day things called I feel nervous, and then there are some situational circumstances like competition where you'd write that down. Okay? But it'll say that. So during competition, do you feel tense in your stomach?
Depends on who we're playing.
That's true, that's valid.
What do you think I put for my mind wanders during sport competitions?
Bowling.
What did you do when you were in competition? Anybody else? I hope you guys do well. There's not a right or wrong answer to this. Right back.
What's the question twice? On 14, what is this?
I have lapses of concentration during competition because of nervousness. So if you're not doing very well, if you're getting nervous, are you kind of freezing mentally? Or are you still focusing on the game? Are you zoning out?
We're doing this whole packet, right?
Huh?
We're doing the whole packet.
Eventually, yeah. There's some things on the next part of it that you need to know before you do the second page.
So,
There's some before you do the second page. There's a couple things that you have to know.
before the
Yeah,
page. Okay.
Did you add up your scores?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody,
I'm trying.
you're
I'm
trying.
really bad at this. I keep losing track of where I was.
What?
I keep losing track of where I was. What number I left off on.
You good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so trait anxiety, the most extreme worry for trait is 80.
Is that the most worrisome?
Yep. Worry score is 28. Concentration disruption score is 20. And then somatic trait anxiety score is 36.
We're supposed to add up every single one
Okay.
For what?
For the first one, too.
for the first one?
Oh, that
The
was
first one. Oh, the screen.
As I said before,
I'm sorry.
add every single thing up first.
That's all right.
So,
Austin, what'd you get?
Like for all of them, 36.
Okay. Zamora?
65.
Kellen?
44.
Eric?
30.
Okay. What about worry? Yeah?
Me?
Yeah.
19.
Zamora? Austin?
14.
Caitlin? Katie? Sorry. I don't know why I called you that.
16.
16. Eric?
11.
11. All right, concentration disruption, just like what Zamora is doing right now. What's your score?
Mom?
Yeah, you can go first.
15.
15? Okay.
13.
13.
7.
8.
7.
Okay. And then the somatic trait anxiety score? 15. Okay. Zamora?
9.
29. Eric?
10.
20.
15.
Did you put 26?
Sorry.
Jeez.
Step back.
Did you say this was a SAS test?
I guess, yeah, it's SAS. So. Okay, so some of you guys are either high or low when it comes to anxiety levels. So at least you know that. going in exactly which one, out of the ones that you guys have assessed, which one are you scoring the highest in as far as worry goes? Traits. Caitlin, which one are you scoring the highest? Roach.
Worry score.
Worry score, okay.
Does trait count?
What?
Are we talking about the bottom three or trait as well?
Yeah, trait as well as the bottom three.
Won't trait be higher than everything else? Is
Well,
all
as
identical?
in like you personally, where are you ranking yourself?
Oh, not
Yeah.
according to the numbers?
Right.
Okay.
I don't know. Mine probably would be concentration if it's like what I think.
Okay. What do you think, Eric?
What's the question again?
So, out of all of these, in your assessment of yourself, which one do you think you're ranking the highest in?
For like being worried about?
Yeah. That you're experiencing anxiety in.
Probably concentration.
Concentration. Okay. McGee?
What is somatic stress?
Well, we're gonna get into the actual definition of it, but
Okay.
as far as the it's like your physical display of what's going on in your mind.
Oh,
Is-
that one for sure.
That one? Okay.
Mine would also be that one.
Okay. What did you say, Zamora?
Said worry.
Worry. Okay. Do you think that this is relative to where you are as an athlete during competitions? When the pressure is either on or when it's not even there, but you've perceived it as a threat? Is it pretty true to form, you think?
Talking about the numbers or what I said?
Yeah, just the overall assessment of yourself in this. It seems as if we're either towards the lower end or right in the middle when it comes to trait anxiety, which is good. We're kind of right in the middle when it comes to somatic trait anxiety, which is what I think is probably truthful. I don't think that you guys are completely overly anxious in that area, but there are still things that we can improve on and will improve on over our life. Because sometimes it takes our entire life to be able to sustain low level stress areas. Alright, so basically based on these results, that cognitive is what's going on in your mind. How many of you guys feel like when you have anxiety, you have a tendency to start thinking negative thoughts? How do you feel like you've already lost the game when you get to that point? Or you're scared to lose the game at that point? Okay? So that's what cognitive is. Somatic is, again, what your body does based on what your mind is thinking. This is where you would have a tendency to shoot the ball flat, a tendency to foul a lot, a tendency to make simple mistakes like traveling and things like that. Perceived control state anxiety is where now you have the resources and you've already had the resources to start meeting those mental challenges that you have. That's where we want to get to. Because right now, if cognitively you're already starting to think negative and you've already lost the game and your body is showing that, then we're not in control of neither our mind and our body at that point. And we want to get to our mind and our body being okay in the moment. So, then the question is this. Where does emotions come into play with this? Because don't emotions have both positive and negative thoughts? They're not one or the other, right? If we had more positive thoughts and thinking patterns, understanding that in the end everything's going to be okay. If Roach has a bad game and she gets 20 turnovers in her game. Whoa! 20 turnovers!
Be on the bench.
If you had 20 turnovers, is it the end of the world?
No.
But in the moment, it feels like it, right? Yeah. So a lot of times when we're, as athletes, we know of an all or nothing, a 0 to 100 in our intensity and effort. But what we don't know is can we still care and think positive thoughts even when we're in a situation where we have 20 turnovers? What would it take to get us there? You take your mind. Is there anything else that's helpful? This is what we're going to do. Eric and Caitlin and Zamora, you guys are going to discuss what we need to get ourselves from a complete negative meltdown into positive outputs.
Jesus.
How can we change it? Okay? Katie and Austin, same thing. Let's start brainstorming and coming up with those ideas.
Are we putting these on here?
What?
Are we putting these on here?
You can put them on the back of the SAS.
We do need to write them down.
Yeah,
The backpack.
the back. No, the back of your SAS.
Is that what all this is?
No, not all of it's SAS. Only those first two digits. What?
Can you repeat the question again just so I have it?
Yep. You have 20 turnovers. How can you get to the point where you start thinking positive thoughts? What is it going to take? And can we do it with still caring about the situation? A lot of people can do it when they stop caring. That's not what we're talking about. A lot of people can do it when we have motivation. You still have to care and be concerned about the game. What's it going to take?
Not good.
First thing, probably in the moment, or maybe crying, talking anger, and probably just saying about how you are bad, right? So basically, these are something that first we have to get over ourselves.
She said she was too scared to hurt me.
Okay.
Anyways, sorry.
So
Coach Keith.
emotions do have an impact on your performance and your output. So again, this will be on the test. You've got your stress and the stress process. Do we enter the game already stressed?
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I say it depends on who we play.
Okay, who do we play and identify that game I'm going to step into it stressed?
When you know they're bigger than you.
When they're
When they
bigger
beat-
than me.
Like NAIA teams or something like that.
Yeah?
Or if it's like a big game.
Okay.
When they've beat you in the past.
So do blowouts make the stress more, or do the close games that you had prior to make the stress more? Blowouts.
Actually, closer.
The closer
If
ones?
it was closer, I would be more stressed out.
Okay. So when you are stressed, especially as an athlete, your performance has an imbalance already, because you're not going into the game completely confident. You're going into the game with a lot of question marks emotionally, right? So the way that you're able to cope and control your mind, which, what does it say in the Bible? And I think it's either 1 Corinthians or Colossians. Take captive every thought. Okay, Eric, look that up for me. Find the reference.
2 Corinthians.
What?
2 Corinthians 10:5.
What does it say?
It says, "We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ."
Yeah, so when we go into the game not confident and feeling like we've either A, already lost the game, or our selves cannot match up, are we already speaking lies as we enter that game? So we're not even going into the game with the truth. We're going into the game with lies. And that's exactly where the take captive every thought has to start. For us, it has to start there. It has to start even prior to the game. Because if we're already thinking that we're not measuring up, when will we think that we do measure up? So that stress process, we can take it back and we can make it smaller, but it is dependent upon us, and not only our response, but again, our reaction to it. So there's a couple of stages that as an athlete you go through, and this will be on the test. The stage 1 is where Roach has already identified it. We're going into the game. The game A is either a blowout or it was a close match up, and even the environment. So a lot of times athletes get scared or have a lot of anxiety when they enter a gym that looks completely different. You know what I'm talking about? So for instance, even just our gym looks nothing like Faith. What's the biggest difference?
It's bigger, it's huge.
It's huge, and the depth perception,
Yeah.
where the hoop is way different than where the wall is for us, right? So Barclays gym looks like our gym. Very similar, because the hoop is very close to the wall, therefore that depth perception doesn't have as much of an impact on our shooting. So when we assess that the environmental demand is what's causing our stress, then that makes a difference. If your team has a tendency to start arguing with each other when the game is close, or when they experience failure and a whole run from the other team, that's an environmental factor. So our scenarios that we came up with are also an environmental factor. That's where it starts, that's where it begins. So think about a scenario. Look at one of these things that you have here. Think about the scenario first, okay? And see if this may be accurate for you. All right, pick out the scenario. Now what you're going to do is the individual's perception of the environmental demand. What is your perception when you read that scenario? So imagine yourself in that scenario right now. What is your perception? Are you experiencing anxiety or anger? Are you experiencing some form of stress? Okay? Then we get into that response. Does our attention change? Are we going to start having muscle tension? Is our abilities to move well, for instance, on defense? Are we coming slower, not because we don't want to, but because we are so highly anxious? And then the last one is behavioral consequences. Now, because of my stress and anxiety, am I almost fouling out? Now that my stress and anxiety has gotten the best of me, is my shooting percentage awful? Is the defense, am I allowing a hole in the defense? Because I'm not concentrated on the movement patterns that need to happen and different variables. So basketball, since I'm majority talking to basketball players today, is a series of a ton of variables and a series of unfortunate events sometimes, right? And so when we have those demands on ourselves, our emotions have to take part of it. It has to take play in it. So I am the worst artist in the world, so I'm just going to draw, and even then I can't even draw a circle very well. Okay, so let's talk about what goes into our mind. Who's impacting our mind?
Ourselves.
What?
Ourselves.
Well, I know.
Coach.
We're talking about ourselves right here. Coach. Coach's expectations.
His body language.
Coach's body language. Okay? All right, what else?
Teammate body language.
So we're just going to need to say teammate, we're just going to need to say body language. Right? All right, Eric, give me another one.
Negative comments from the crowd.
The crowd?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. McGee,
Social media.
how is that impacted?
Our anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I think because we can compare ourselves to other people on social media, thinking I'm not doing enough to make my life worth living, basically. Because all these other people that I see seem to have perfect lives, but I don't. So.
Within the game?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So within the game.
You can see other athletes on social media and see how well they're doing and be anxious about yourself.
Okay.
Insecurity.
Zamora?
I would say, honestly, words for me affect me from the team and coach, not just body language.
Words. Austin.
Does how good your parents were? Comparison of
Your parents' perception?
yeah.
Okay. Or parental approval, maybe.
Yeah, parental approval, yeah.
That's a big one. What about even just teammate relationships? Right? That's another part of this. Success on the court. Look at how many arrows that is. That's a lot. And all of those things can potentially cause a lot of anxiety within yourself, right? So if we have, can our minds think by milliseconds? So can we accomplish and think through all of these things within a minute? So if we have all this stuff going on inside of our mind, and yet our mind is also supposed to perform, just like with that string and the key, okay, we concentrated on that, right? How can we concentrate on that when we have all that to think about as well? Yeah. So we've got to try and eliminate the noise in order for us to do well. Right? Because we want to get to the point where we can concentrate just on this. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when you guys do well, you can feel it within your body. And you're drowning out this noise. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to figure out how to drown out that noise as much as possible in order for us to make an impact. Do most of those things that we just wrote up on the board, do they come with a grain of truth but a lot of lie? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they come with a lot of lies. Now, even as we're talking about these things, it doesn't mean that after this class you can go and experience great mental success, but it does mean that you're aware of things so that way you can start forming a coping model of how to plan and execute, right? So even within the execution of parental approval or the execution of how to handle body language, all of those things, you can start identifying what they are and try and fix this. So sources, as we continue through this, and we've already identified some, but the other ones are the uncertainty of the future. And that looks in game form and in team chemistry form. All of these things, again, you've got the team and the coach and you. You got three factors that you're working with, and they all can flow together or they can not flow together. And if they flow together, it's great. If they don't, it's not great. So uncertainty of the future. If you guys had a ton of injuries on your team, or your numbers are dropping, right? Is that uncertainty? Yes. It is uncertainty. So we have this idea that when we have personal resources or sources where we have a supportive network, in order for our teams to do well, where does their support network need to come from? How do we identify what those things look like? What do you guys appreciate about a support network? And this is what I mean by that. As a coach has to have, and this is something that you guys are all going to want in your pocket for the future. You need to find your support network. It should consist of a good friend, a mentor, maybe a parent or a grandparent, somebody that gives you positive feedback. Because when are you going to call them? When things are going really well or when things are going really bad? A little bit of well, a lot of bad. Because you're searching for some advice. So if you can find people that can speak truth into your life and help you through those processes of teammates arguing with each other, of players not being motivated, the list is long. If you can have those people, that network of people, then your success becomes greater and you're much more effective. So if you can have somebody who helps you think correctly about a situation, then you can reformat in your mind, okay, now what are my next steps? Now I can cope a whole lot better because now I'm past the emotional part and now I'm getting into this part. How do I execute my plan? So within your team dynamic, how can you guys as a team have a support network? Who would that consist of as a team?
coach.
Okay, but should he be the only one?
Just a
We
joy.
have good assistant coaches and like managers.
Assistant coaches, managers who know basketball. What?
Miss Brooke.
Okay, coach's wife. That's a good one. Are friends good or bad in this situation?
I would say that.
You would say bad. Why?
Because just because they're your friend, but like it's a team dynamic type thing, friends tend to pick the people that they hang out with the most. So
Okay.
like, let's say if it was one of our managers, but she was more of a friend to us than a manager, then like if she hung out with me more, she could be more on my side than on like the whole team side.
Right. So there's a tendency with friends that they only hear one side of the story. Right? So we want to find people who might be even older than our age group, right? And start asking questions about certain things. What we're trying to do is create a safety net to where if your team gets into conflict or everybody's demoralized or something is occurring, that there's this sensibility of how can we recover fast from this as quickly as possible. Doesn't mean that when somebody says that they're sorry that you automatically have no emotion. No, there's a wound there that has to be healed. But can it be healed in the right ways? That's where the recovery process comes in, right? So you want to find people that can help and understand recovery processes. So there are a couple of things with the intense amount of intensity that you guys will face, right, as an athlete. So anxiety, performance, relationship. You have to consider how much anxiety somebody has. Now this can be you, and here's the question. Are you only thinking of yourself in this situation? Or are you thinking about other members of your team? Because we have both that we're looking at. And when you guys become coaches, are you going to be thinking only of yourself? Or are you going to think about the care and concern of your team? We need you to consider the care and concern of your team over yourself, right? As a coach. If you start practicing these principles now, that's going to be very helpful later on. So, when we have this relationship where the anxiety is happening, and now we have the interpretation of anxiety, this can really cause a debilitating of performance. So one of the things is when we were looking over your question, when I was looking over your questions for, think about a performance that you performed poorly, most everyone was able to put down a situation where they were nervous or anxious prior to the event, prior to the game even. Okay, so if we're able to say, hey, I see that I'm highly anxious, and now I'm going to interpret it, and I'm going to start to organize these emotions, okay? I'm going to start to plan a response so that I don't have to deal with this anxiety, right? And as a coach, you will feel this a lot. Because a lot of times as coaches, we get our identities mixed up with the success of our team. Just like players, that line crosses with them too. And it's a battle. Sometimes it's a daily battle. You know, just because your coach is telling you guys, find your identity in Christ, doesn't mean that they always do it every day. Because they're human beings. They're not going to be perfect at it, right? You're going to fail them, and they're going to fail you. They're going to make those mistakes. So viewing your anxiety leads to more of a superior performance if you can take it and plan ahead. I had one girl on my team several years ago who in high school, and I was told this by one of her previous teammates, because both these teammates went to Calvary. One came a year before the other one did. And what she told me is that when after every single game was over with, this teammate's father would then take her outside, and usually there were still a lot of people around, and just yell and scream about every little thing that she did wrong. She was a very nervous player. And at first I thought that she just had trait anxiety. She was just naturally nervous about everything. But when we were able to sit down and dissect exactly what was making her nervous, she understood that it was her father that was making her nervous. So when we would play other games where there was no parental viewing of it in live action, she was able to concentrate, focus, and be able to do well. It's when that force came into play, she didn't know how to cope with it. She didn't know what she could do to fix the problem. So we started doing some things where she was viewing her identity as wrapped up as being a good basketball player in her father's eyes. That's how she perceived their relationship to each other. So when we were able to show that and organize that input and show her, hey, my identity has nothing to do with your approval. And now I need to start practicing it. Now, when she realized that truth, do you think it was fixed? It wasn't fixed. We had to practice it. Okay, so the first game came into effect. After the game, her dad yelled, chewed her out for everything that she did wrong, right? The second game came and went. It wasn't until after that first season that we started to see some success. And it was frustrating too, because it took a journey and the process took longer than what she wanted it to take. But you're talking about years and years of criticism that she now has to turn a switch on and fix. So every time that you guys experience mentorship or counseling with somebody, know that it's not going to be fixed like that. The truth is there, but now you have to start exercising it in your mind. And it will always be a journey, no matter what happens. But you have to have support. So there were times where I had to tell her, you're doing well. I would take her out. Every time I saw an increased anxiety level, I would take her out and I would tell her, you're fine, you're doing great. These are the ways that you are doing great. And that helped her to gain some elements of mental concentration to focus on, rather than feeling that threatening environment that was occurring. Does that make sense? I've also had a player who refused to shoot the ball. Her whole identity from her previous coach was she had two things that she was responsible for: stealing the ball and making a layup. That's it. She could never shoot the ball outside. She couldn't shoot 15-footers and she couldn't shoot 3-point shots. He only wanted her to do those two things. I needed her to do more. Her team needed her to do more. So her freshman year was all about retraining that mentality. And her teammates would actually yell, shoot the ball, shoot the ball. Okay? Shoot the ball. And she had to then start to believe that. Her first game as a freshman, she scored 26 points. But it was because she already had that talent. It was there. She needed somebody to believe in her, that she could actually do that and be a huge impact. She later went on and now is the second leading scorer in Calvary history. Okay? So that's a big improvement, right? But those are the mental obstacles that we have to get through and help the players to get through as well. And even your teammates.
Are any of these passed through on the quiz?
The past 3 slides?
Yeah, have you, I just didn't.
Yeah, no, the past 3 are not.
Oh man.
This doesn't mean that you can't have that information, Caitlin.
Well, yeah, but the more I try to study, the more I'm not going to remember.
Oh, okay.
So 7 is 7 on there?
Well, now you got got me mixed up here. We're on number 12.
So it's 7, 9, and 10 on
7 is.
there.
9 is not.
That's 9.
8 or 9 are not. 10 is not. 11 is not. And 12 is not. Okay, so last one of significance and performance views. So, do psyching up strategies work? What does it mean to psych somebody up?
Get them excited for it.
Okay,
Mentally, I guess.
what?
Like mentally excited.
Mentally exciting? Excited?
Stimulating.
How do we get ourselves psyched up? I guess you guys say hyped up
Yeah,
now.
we say hype.
What?
We say hype. We say hype. Hype them up.
Okay, hype them up. How do we hype people up?
Hype me up.
How?
I think it varies on person.
Okay, explain that.
So, like, for me, to hype me up, I like watching people be hyped. Like, because I don't like being in the middle of it because it makes me feel weird. So, like, just watching it makes me feel better. Like,
She
when,
likes being shoved around.
no, I do not. Like, when they do, like, the jumping thing and they, like, hit each other, I think it's funny. So it, like, hypes me up.
So something is funny and then that hypes you up? Okay.
But, like, some people have to be in the middle of it for them to get hyped.
Yeah.
So I think it varies on the person.
Eric, what about you?
What it takes me to get hyped? Music or just whenever I feel like it?
Okay.
Music is good.
Music?
Yeah.
Austin? How can we hype you up for this interview?
I don't know.
Okay. Zamora,
What?
you didn't tell me how we can hype you up.
She likes jumping.
She likes hip bumping.
I like. Yeah, I like when people like slam their chest against me. That's like my thing.
I do it all the
It's like
time.
I just literally love that. And then I also like when people give me like a nice hearty like dap me up, you know, like just like a solid, it's just beautiful. Like it just butters my biscuits.
Watching that makes me hyped.
All right.
Yup.
Wow.
needs to happen.
Zamora,
There
wow.
needs to be
Music.
music.
And you ask me questions.
Just
Katie
wait
and Zamora
till
just-
have you watched us play
and
that
Caitlin
one?
just watching.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah, Caitlin will just be laughing.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yeah.
That's what needs to happen, and then I'll be like,
Just
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
there's a time
Yeah.
last year where we all like fasted something, and Coach fasted like hip hop music or like
Oh, yes.
hype up music. So we literally listened to Caleb for 30
Stop.
days in the weight room, and it was horrible.
It was hard.
It was hard to get hyped up.
Well, especially when it was
We were,
like the
doing
really,
this, and
really
this, like,
slow
next time,
songs.
Caleb, you're like,
It was like,
this is for real.
He wasn't listening to Kirk Franklin and it sucked. Said he wasn't listening to Kirk Franklin and it sucked.
I don't know what it is.
The day he brought it
He
back
wasn't
up.
listening to Kirk Franklin?
well, he deleted his Spotify, so we had to like listen to like the radio.
Like,
So then you would hear like just the like
it was
People,
awful at
yeah.
6 a.m.
The morning news and traffic and all that stuff, yeah.
I'm good.
Woo.
it was rough.
So we are going to talk about, eventually we're going to get to the point where we need to start having imagery and relaxation and goal setting skills to cope with your anxiety levels. And this is where we can get hyped up, but we can control it. Have any of you guys got too hyped up that when you started the game, you were making mistakes all over the place?
Yes.
No?
But that's just because I suck, not because of.
Stop. That's trash.
Negative self-talk gets you nowhere.
Mine normally doesn't transfer into the game.
you, bro.
What?
Mine normally doesn't
Oh.
transfer into the game.
It doesn't.
I'm too serious.
Yeah, you are pretty serious. This is Caitlin.
This might sound funny, but whenever you show cows, they can sense like what you're feeling. And so there was one time that I was really, really, really excited and hyped,
So
and so was the cow. I almost got drug around the whole ring.
That's how goats are.
almost ruined. Yeah, so it wasn't competitive that time, but yeah.
That's how goats are.
That's the best story I think I've heard in a long time.
Yep.
You got drug around the rink almost.
No, I did.
Okay, does the cow sense your excitement and interpret it as fear?
No, just like energy.
It just moves.
Yeah.
And it just moves all over the place. I'm gonna have to try that experiment out. I'm gonna try that.
It's like when you ride horses. Like if
Show
you're
goats.
scared,
So
the
it's
horse
kind
will
of a
be like,
dangerous experiment.
Yeah, it is.
Show goats are the same. I about strangled mine.
Wow.
It was going to jump over my hands.
I wouldn't say that. But
Well, goats, it's like show with your hands. You don't have like a harness or whatever. So like, you let go of it,
It's gone.
it's gone.
What are you gonna say, Eric?
I don't say that getting me hype makes me go out and like if I get too hype, I get like start doing bad. I start going too fast.
Yeah, and that's normally the problem is, especially during like high competitive, like tournament championships or even semifinals. All those things could lead into exactly what you're describing. I mean, I've seen teams go for 5 minutes without scoring the first bucket. And these are like college teams.
Our first game in regionals, we scored 5 points in the first half for both teams.
Yeah, that's not great.
Yeah.
So we need to find a strategy, so that way our team can calm down just a little bit, right? Because if we're not scoring for 5 minutes, somebody should say something. Yeah. What would be the thing that you should say though? Like if you said calm down, you think that would be good?
No.
Everybody hates that word.
I mean, if
Calm
someone
down.
said that to me, I would probably.
You would what?
It doesn't actually bother me when people tell me to calm down as long as I'm not too like crazy. I don't know. If I'm like just
Past the line.
past it, then I'll be like, shut up. But if I'm not, then I'll be like, oh yeah, I guess I'm
Is it more when you're hype or is it when you're mad?
Oh.
Because if I'm mad, then it irritates me. But if I'm like acting crazy, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
I feel like you guys could probably do well if somebody said something calming though.
If someone said like, hey,
Calm
you're doing
down.
really well, you're just really helter-skelter, like you need to tone it down a little bit, I would respond a lot better to that.
So toning it down is the route to go. And you do have to find the words that are the best for your team. I don't think anybody relates to calm down very well. Zamora,
What?
do you? Somebody told you to calm down, would you like that? No. Nobody likes it except for McGee.
No one's told me to calm
If I'm
down,
in the
so-
knots,
unless they're joking.
Right.
in love,
Eric, do you like being told to calm down?
If you can tell
you're
me,
like,
except for when they're joking. I'm already
You
calm.
feel already calm right now, so
Eric's always calm.
Eric is always calm.
Calm, cool, collected.
That is me.
That's why his scores were so low. So just chills.
He just chills. Yeah.
Calm, cool, collected, Christ-like, charismatic, colorful, creative.
You sure you don't want to walk over next door and just take the English class?
stop.
Okay. Now, all of you guys in here are sophomores, right?
No.
Well, I mean, I know that you're not.
Oh, yeah.
But like, age-wise,
No, technically I'm a junior age-wise.
you're a junior?
Same.
You're a junior? Okay. So what we have is different phases within the collegiate personalities and what they identify. So I want you guys to remember these things here. So when we do get too hyped up, we increase muscle tension. Sometimes there's fatigue because we over-energize ourselves. And the coordination, our depth perception is limited. And I'll talk about how our depth perception is limited in a second. But this is what I really want to key in for a second, and then go. Okay. So as a freshman, and maybe McGee and Roach can agree with this. As a freshman in college, everything is new, right? It's new. There's a lot of excitement. What other types of emotions did you guys experience?
Sadness.
Irritated.
Sadness,
Confusion.
For real.
confusion,
Irritated. Self-loathing.
Self-loathing.
depression,
Oh my gosh.
anxiety.
I feel like we should
Who am I?
It's like the Grinch when he's like,
I got irritated a lot. What with myself?
you got irritated?
wrestle
Okay,
with myself.
do we feel like this is happening because of uncertainty?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So the negative emotions are because of uncertainty, right? Because you haven't really experienced anything, you're just uncertain, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so sophomore, which, anybody know the definition for a sophomore?
Oh, something sophisticated, something idiot, something.
What? Moron?
Sophisticated idiot something?
Sophisticated
Soft more.
What I've heard is it's called
Sophisticated
a
moron?
wise fool.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it is. And then it says
Summed up.
something.
I didn't
idiot.
Wise fool.
Is it?
Now why is it called, why are they called the wise fool?
Because they're wise by being foolish.
Because they have a little bit of experience, but they're so stupid. Well, like.
Okay, so the wise part is you've already had all this uncertainty to now become certain for the most part, right? There's still some question marks, McGee. Stop being sassy as a sophomore.
What?
So what we're looking at is we're looking at the wisdom here isn't necessarily wise, it's just that you have more knowledge. If I tell you the team Barkley, what is the first thing that enters your mind?
Rude.
If I say Faith, what is that? Faith Baptist Bible College.
Theology.
What?
Theology.
Bots.
I'm talking about the teams, the opponents.
Oh.
Emmaus.
They're like, oh.
I like Emmaus.
I like Emmaus.
But what do you think of? What is the first word that you think of?
Kia.
Kind.
Eric, what do you think of?
One thing of Emmaus,
Yeah.
Tyrus.
What?
Tyrus.
Tyrus. Okay, so you think of a player.
I think Emmaus is sweet.
Okay, what about Manhattan?
Ew.
Idiots.
Stuck up.
Stuck
Very
up?
much.
Rough.
Rough?
Like, based on, like, how they play, but not roughness.
Eric?
Arrogant.
Arrogant?
Mm.
Okay.
It's a go-getter.
Okay, so if we were to tell you guys those team names when you were freshmen, coming brand new into the program, never played them, never having that experience, you wouldn't have those words, right? Because you didn't have any experience. All you could bank on was what everybody else was saying about those teams. That was your only perception. Is that true? Yeah, because you didn't know. Now you have that knowledge. Now you have the experience. You understand the pace of those types of teams. You understand the opponent. You get a feel for what's going on in that environment. You've also gone to the gym, right? Before, you had no idea what the gyms look like. You've experienced the environment. You know what their crowds are like. All of those things you have knowledge in. But with knowledge also comes expectations. And this is where the foolish part enters in. And this is where sophomores, it gets the best of you. And I've seen trend after trend, sophomore after sophomore group saying, oh, I'll never do that, I'll never do that, I'll never do that. But this is where it gets the best. Your expectations, you've already seen seniors play at a senior level in the tournament. You know what the best of the best looks like. Now you want to be the best of the best, not only for the purposes of maybe acquiring that, but you also want to be the best of the best because you feel like it's attainable. You're seeking after it. You want that. And the motivation there could be good, and it could go straight down into selfishness, right? And so these expectations as a sophomore, you don't know how to manage them quite well yet because compartmentally, are we in our 4th year playing basketball? No, but we expect that we are.
Do you think that's why they always say it's a sophomore slump?
Yeah.
I refuse to hit that.
Okay, so then how do we cope with the sophomore slump?
Get over yourself. Because if it's all about you, then it's all selfish.
I think checking your heart too, like
Checking your heart.
remembering like why you're playing basketball, but also like how you can use the little knowledge that you've gained and put it into gaining even more instead of letting it get to your head, basically.
Yeah, so we have to then manage these expectations, right? So that management in your mind needs to start occurring so that way we take these expectations and make them realistic. Because a senior level basketball player, you want to strive to that. You feel like that's a reality, that it can happen because you've already experienced a lot of game time, a lot of minutes, and you've experienced success with it. But there are still things within the years that you have to accomplish. Experience cannot be coached. It must be done. So, as a junior, you know what we do as juniors? Eric, you're a junior? As a junior, we start to redefining ourselves. And it's interesting to know, and if you guys can do this within your sophomore year, you're going to already be a junior by the middle of your sophomore year, if you're willing to do this, okay? You look at your expectations and you say, is this realistic for me? And where I'm at. And you start going through those processes. So you get a disappointment. Where were my expectations? Another disappointment comes. Where were my expectations? Are they realistic at that point? So we say redefinement. And this is where juniors, when they redefine themselves, they start getting better with their team and with their skill levels. So team dynamics improve, coachability improves. Let me just tell you, there is some serious sass that comes from sophomores because they don't want to be coached. So this right here is a big part of the process. I'm not saying this is for you. I'm saying that this is what has happened over the course of the
No,
years.
you just put us in a box, and I really don't appreciate that.
Okay. Let's talk about this.
Sounded so serious.
Yeah, it really
It's too
did.
serious in here.
It really sounded serious.
I didn't want to look back. I thought you were serious.
You
I'm
almost
sorry,
made-
I had too much coffee, and now I'm sorry.
That's
Keep
okay.
going.
Okay, so this coachability is the problem
Easy.
that we see in a lot of sophomores because they feel like they've earned their minutes. They've worked hard, they've gotten strong over the summer, they've done everything that the coaches asked for. Their expectation is here for how much they should be getting in playing time, right?
Yeah.
But that's a personal agenda. That's not a team agenda. Okay, so you got team, coachability, and then even the relationship with the coach. Because you've learned and you've started to become humble. And that takes maturity. So then we have senior. what have you seen from the seniors?
Senioritis.
The
Yeah,
ones-
you see burnout sometimes. What?
I was gonna say when I think of senior, I think of Leah, and I ask her why she looks like she's having so much fun, and she's just like, it's gonna be over, and like she wants to just make the most out of this. So realization.
What?
Realization. I realize.
Yeah, it's a realization. And so as a senior, you're making the most of it. And you want to make the most of it. So it's not even just the realization, you're now seeking to. And that's huge. That goes so far. So exactly, Leah, it has taken her this long. Actually, last year she was there even. But it has taken her 4 years to get to that point. She was not there before, and she'll tell you that over and over again. Right? But that takes maturity to be able to get to that point, and humility. When you let go of that expectations that are here that are not realistic, then you understand, okay, this is the, Mount Everest that I'm trying to climb up. Okay, because we all start here as freshmen. If you think that you're here as a sophomore, that's not truth. You still have a lot of climbing to do. All right, take a 10-minute break. And so what we want to identify is our team or players on our team, are they narrowing their attention? So let's look at that real quick. This is like a sky view of a football player in their helmet. Okay? Now, there are different types of visions here. Okay? So optimal attention field is just moderate vision. And what this means is that we're not viewing everything, but we're viewing the things that are most important to our position. Okay? When we have maybe a lower amount of excitement, our vision becomes really broad, and some players will do this. They'll get into other people's positions. Okay? Because they don't think that the other person can actually fulfill their position. So for instance, I saw this on a volleyball team one time where I was coaching, and I had an outside hitter who was really, really good. She would stay in her position when it came to the front row. But she was also a really, really good passer. Like, she was one of the best on the team. So what would happen is she would be in that middle of the defense, and she could anticipate, because she was really good at determining the hitting strength of each of these positions and her opponents on the outside. So because she did not have any sort of an excitement, all she wanted to do is anticipate. Now here's the thing. When you can anticipate, it's awesome when you're in this zone. But when you make it too broad and you're starting to cover here and here where everybody else is and should be, what happens to the rest of the team?
Discouragement, probably.
Discouragement, and they are questioning their position and their role on their team. Right? So it made her really good. She got a lot of stats from it. But overall, it did her team no good. Because now they just thought, oh, that person's just going to get it. Right? Okay? So then we have high amounts of excitement. Now, is that a path that you can see anything with?
Not really.
No. So you're, as a basketball player, you're really concerned about dribbling, your head's down, you can't even look up because you're so highly anxious. Right? You can dribble, but not very well. You second guess your turnover. It's a hesitation, and it could definitely be snatched away from you, right? This also makes a big impact when you're not even talking about offense, but you're also talking about defense. How could this narrow vision impact defense?
You're probably too close to your person.
You only see your man.
Yeah, you only see your person, because this is literally how much I can see. So this is what I want you guys to do. I want you to put your hands just like this. Okay? And when you just turn and look at each other from where you're at. Kaylin, turn. Okay? All right. So what does this mean? We not only look funny, but our mind can only see this much. We might as well just put our hands straight up.
No peripheral vision.
There's no peripheral vision at all. But our minds can automatically do that. It can make us so tunnel vision, and we don't even need to have blinders. Right? So when we get in this way, we start running into our teammates, we start trying to steal a ball, end up creating fouls, because we're just constantly worried. We're constantly not sure, and we're uncertain about everything else going around us. We're scared to make a mistake. This also means that, when you're, and this is what I hate. Oh, I hate this so much in basketball. You get a fast break, this person takes it, runs down the court, and their teammate is right here. and we just do a little one-on-one action and take it through when she was or he was wide open. That's tunnel vision.
I had a friend break his leg because he wanted to go up and score, and I was wide open on the block, and he came down and broke his leg.
So you could break
Yes,
legs.
he was so tunnel vision.
That's the end of that story. You could break a leg.
Don't share the goal, you break a leg.
But
Literally.
this doesn't give this person very much confidence, right? It doesn't say to them that they believe in them at all. Okay, could you want to do it for the purposes of drawing a foul?
Mm-hmm.
You could, right? If you had that ability to draw a foul and knew the timing of how to draw a foul, it could be beneficial if this person that was defending had 4 fouls and she could easily get fouled out. That's strategy. That's not being tunnel vision. I'm talking about making no sense by your decision making. Right? That's where that tunnel vision comes into play. It also means that I'm basically face guarding my person and I'm not even seeing the potential to steal the ball. That's tunnel vision. How do we get somebody out of that? How do you get yourselves out of it?
Not focus on yourself.
Okay? How do you get yourself out of tunnel vision? We've all been there. Think back to a time where you became tunnel vision. Why? Why did that happen? Why did it occur?
I think, well, for me, like, honestly, being pulled out of the game and, like, seeing the team, like, seeing the bigger picture, being forced to see the bigger picture, like, the whole court and just the team and what we look like, I think that helps for me instead of just being so focused on myself and, like, what I'm doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Gives me a new perspective.
Do you think someone could, I guess you could say, put you in a tunnel vision?
100%. 100%. Especially like your coaches or somebody that has a huge influence. I remember, for volleyball, it would seem like it would be really hard to get tunnel vision in volleyball. I remember this was a long time ago. I was back in high school in the 90s. Yeah, you guys weren't even born then. You weren't even a twinkle in your parents' eyes. Anyways, so I was in serve receive. What?
My mom wasn't even married.
Yeah. I was in serve receive, and the ball comes at me, and this is, I got swung up to varsity. I was a sophomore, and I knew that I had to prove myself in this instant. Like, as a player mentality, that's what I was thinking, right? So I got into this mentality of, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make an impact. I get on the court. I'm already highly anxious as it is because I'm uncertain if I can measure up, right? So I'm there. I'm in a good defensive position. I'm ready to get the ball. And this person sends a serve right over, and I mean, it was a torpedo. And of course, like, I didn't do great. I shanked the ball. That was strike number 1. Strike number 2 came when she served the ball, and as it was coming, it was a floater. Okay, shanked it again. I see my coach, and I know that she is mad, and she is angry, and she is yelling. I can't hear it because I'm so tunnel vision, and I'm so scared, and I'm just froze. Right? Because now everything has now gotten into me into that high level intensity. I am now tunnel vision. But I also freeze. So the next serve comes over and it goes right in the seam between me and the other girl. I didn't even realize what had happened. I didn't even have recollection that the serve actually went through because I was so frozen by fear, right? But it started with the fact that I did not feel safe with the coach and her expectations. So yeah, I do think that you can get tunnel vision. And really, like, when you guys become coaches one day, how do you make sure that your players do not get tunnel vision? I've done it. I've put a player into tunnel vision before.
Do you think you could put them in tunnel vision by a coach expecting too much of them?
Yeah. Yeah. Saying that, like, you need to be at the skill level set of this other person, and if you don't meet that expectation, then you're out. Even though your skill set still is competitive with the other team and the other opponent, but you want them to be here. So there's a lot of variables with that. So as a coach, we don't want to get them, and we don't want to get ourselves into this. This is really where we have to work ourselves out of it too. And the way that we do it is we try to expand get rid of ourselves and start looking at other people and how you can contribute to the team as a contributor, not the team. Right? You're not the only person in the team. You're a factor in the team, right? So with this, again, our optimal attention span isn't too wide, it's right in the middle, right? So when we come to narrowing attention, that's where we're left with. Then what happens to the shift to dominant style? That again is where we find ourselves in this variable right here. We're dominating because we don't feel like everybody else on the team is adequate. You will have players like this that you have to work with all the time. I had a player once who I was like, you gotta stop this. This isn't helping your team at all. And she was really stubborn, and it was a really rough year working with her. Okay, she wasn't like that the year before, but she was like that the second year. And then when she graduated, she had her own basketball team. And it was a middle school basketball team. And she called me up and she was like, Coach, I now understand what you were telling me. I didn't quite fully understand it before, but now I see it because I have a player who's doing the exact same thing. So it happens to the best of us, right? So we don't want to get into that dominant style. We don't want to get into tunnel vision. We want to make everybody safe and be in that field and believe in their teammates. So within this dynamic, we have attending to inappropriate cues. So like what you said, Caitlin, the body language impacts this, right? Approval from other people impacts this. Everybody that I had, or every arrow that we were talking about here, okay, impacts this result. So we're attending, our attention is coming towards inappropriate cues. And this, you're going to have to explain what this means. An inappropriate cue is paying more attention to the body language of somebody than to the actual game itself. Now, is that a factor? Sure. But if it hinders our performance levels, then where are we at in this dynamic?
How did you say it?
We're here.
Cue is what? I can't read that fast.
No, I just need to gather my thoughts again. I don't remember what I said. What do you have so far?
Inappropriate cue is.
Oh, the inappropriate cues, the body language? Is that what we're talking about? Yeah. Attending to inappropriate cues. That's what you're talking about? Yes. It shouldn't hinder your abilities to play the game.
Okay.
Because this is what I was saying. You're concentrating on the cue of a person rather than the game itself.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. You're concentrating on the cue rather than the game itself. So it's all dependent on our focus, right? So what I want us to do is I want us to look at this chart here. What is trait anxiety? What is trait? Trait is a personality disposition. We are naturally a worried person. Okay? That's a personal trait. It's a personal factor. Our confidence levels are a factor. Our social physique or anxiety, meaning my abilities measuring up to everybody else's around me. Okay? That has an impact on your person by situation interact. That right there is one part of it. But then you have the other part. How important is this game? And do I have uncertainties with it? As a freshman, you guys remember entering each game not knowing, you watched some game film, but you didn't experience it. Correct? Now you can say, I've experienced this team. I know the rhythm a little bit. Well, maybe you do. I know that Kaylin has a tendency to forget a lot of times. But you still understand the expectation level there and the rhythm of it, right? So these two things have a big impact on where we're going to land. So state anxiety or arousal is that situation by situation. These two things make it to this point. That's where that turning point comes in existence. Okay, so I want you to turn to the second or the third page in this page right here. There's a typo on it because you don't have a professional position on the team. You have a position on the team, right? So position meaning this. You're a point guard, you're a guard, you're a post, whatever that is. I want you to put that down.
Injured reserve.
Injured reserve. I want you, and yes.
What should I write?
Injured reserve.
Injured reserve. Let's
Bench warmer.
stop. Austin. Oh, I just bit my.
Oh, that hurts.
Uh-huh.
I'll come back to you. Okay, so we want to identify within your position as a point guard, whatever, on the team, what are the sources of stress that you're perceiving? And this could even be you were stressed out by a team expectation of that position. So if we have a team expectation of only having 8 turnovers and a half, whatever that case may be, that might be something that's stressful to you because you don't know if you can measure up to that expectation.
Can we go
Right now.
defensive end?
What?
Defensive end?
Any of it. Identify those sources of stress within your position. And then down below, we're going to talk about the 3 ways that you can combat anxiety. So I want you to write down a couple of thoughts that you have to combat those particular situations that you have. Like, what is your way to combat it? Okay. Austin, what should we do here? Do you remember a position that you had a lot of stress in as an athlete?
No.
This is what I want you to do.
Okay.
Rather than position on a team, write down what you want to be when you are out of college. So, even a stadium facilitator, whatever that is, then identify some of the sources of stress that you think could be there. So it could be an employer's personality, it could be anything like that.
Okay.
to find 5 of the sources.
Mm-mm. No, I mean 3 to 5. I need 3. If you can think of any more than that, then write it down. If you can't, that's okay.
Do you want us to go ahead and do the
3 ways to combat anxiety? Yeah, go ahead. Austin, give me a what do you want to be when you grow up?
When I grow up, in public relations.
Public relations, okay. What are some sources of stress?
Can I just list all of them?
Just give me like 2.
Okay. The amount of time it takes, and the balance of personal and work life. How to be on mission within a secular workplace. And being the only girl on the team.
Okay. And what about some ways to combat that anxiety?
To combat that anxiety?
Yeah.
Is to, I forgot to do that part, but we'll,
That's okay.
like create a calendar.
Okay.
Mark out times
Yeah.
that are directly for personal times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not working 14 hours a day. And then also understanding that sorry, give me a moment. Right now, what I'm preparing for with being on mission within the secular workplace, because I feel that's where the Lord's calling me, is to understand that everyone has a sin nature, but God came to save everybody. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's happening.
It totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Means that you have to work along with sinners,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're believers or unbelievers. We're all still sinners at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Eric, what about you?
Point guard, being a floor general.
Being what?
A floor general.
Floor general. Okay.
And then being prone to making most mistakes on the team because the ball's in your hand most of the time. Ways to combat that: confidence from constant practice, getting to know teammates off the court, and studying the plays.
Okay. Katie?
I say generous in my position.
Yeah.
I don't really know what my position is. I play them all.
Okay, you're a utility player. Okay.
Mostly guard. I mean big though. Honestly.
Okay.
Play forward most of the time.
Who are the bigs on your team?
We're all bigs.
We're all bigs and we're all guards.
If
Gotcha.
we're going off of who plays what most, it
Yeah.
would be me and Skylar.
Okay.
But Caitlin also plays big
Okay.
a lot of the time. Not that one.
Not that
Not
one.
this
No.
I'm a wimpy big though.
You're a wimpy big?
I'm just tall. That's it.
Well, you what?
Strong.
You're not strong?
She's both.
Yeah, I'm not.
Your concentration disruption is incredible. Okay.
I just can't sit down for 3 hours.
I know.
Some
next
sources
semester's gonna
of
be different.
stress would be making baskets, dribbling well, and seeing the floor.
Okay.
3 ways to combat that would be prayer, envisioning success instead of failure, encouraging my teammates instead of focusing on myself, and getting in the gym outside of practice.
All right. Zamora?
Is it, we're only picking 3?
Yeah.
Okay. I said ball handling, driving to the rim and finishing is a big one for me. Taking care of the ball, being confident in my abilities, and then shooting with correct form and confidence. To combat it, I said remember how many reps I put in and what I can do. Look to compliment and uplift others. That takes stress off of me. And then remember that no matter what I do, God's looking at me and smiling because I'm playing the game I love and worshiping Him through.
Yeah. Just giving you a hand clap.
So it's not really
All right, Rochi, finish
Just
this out.
Position on team, I put guard. Sources of stress, when someone beats me off the dribble when I'm playing defense. 2, messing up a play, whether it be offense or defense. 3, getting in my head when the other team is doing really well and we haven't scored. And then 3 ways to combat that. Get off yourself, don't be selfish, encourage your teammates instead. 2, remember who you are, and you're playing a game where you're going to fail sometimes. Because that's the reality, you're going to fail sometimes. And
Yeah.
then 3, help in another way when what you're doing isn't working.
Good. Yeah. So this is really good because, within the moment, and this is where we have to start rehearsing, is if we can control our emotions, which means that we already have a planned response of what we're going to do given a scenario. And you guys have those scenarios in the back, right? We organize that output. So we organize that information that we have, and now we have to start thinking correctly. We have to start thinking right about the situation. Then we should already have a planned response. And we should already, before the game even starts, I'm going to go play Barkley. Therefore, I know that they're going to be cussing my ear. I know that they're going to be playing dirty. What?
What did you say?
Cussing
Well, after
In
that.
my ear.
in my ear.
That's not what I heard.
It says my eye ear.
That's what I heard.
Okay. All of those things is a point of reference, right? So I already know that those are the things that are going to bother me, that are going to throw off my shot or make me play horrible defense or something. So if I already know that, I can already plan a response for it. And then I have a choice here, and this is where it comes into play. This COPE model, I have a choice in if I'm going to carry out that plan or not, and that's execution. And there are a lot of times when we get into our game that we know that we have this planned response, but we choose not to execute our plan. And it's so important to be able to execute this plan because that's when success is right around the corner. How many of us as players hear something from coach, right? There's a plan of attack moving forward. And then halftime comes. There's another plan of attack. And we've just zoned out a little bit. Roach is saying yes. Anybody else? Zoning out a little bit.
I don't do that.
Anyways.
I do that all. Sorry.
Yeah. If you're peeking out the window as many times as you are, you're zoning out. So now I don't have a plan for my response as much. But if I'm able to fully concentrate on what that plan is, I can then go in, trust what coach is saying, and actually execute it. How many times when we actually execute the plan, it is successful? What? Usually it is. So if we can take what coach is saying and execute it well, what happens at that point in time when we take a mental situation where we can say, okay, if I'm missing a whole bunch of shots, this is what my response is going to be, and this is how I'm going to execute it. I'm shooting flat. My planned response is that I'm going to put more into my jump or more into my wrist, right? And I'm not shooting good, and so now I have to execute it. I have a choice of executing it or putting emotion into it. Am I going to put emotion into it? That's where that choice of execution comes into play. I put emotion into it, therefore I don't execute it like I need to. Okay, so second page, and this is what you guys are going to do outside of class.
Are we bringing this back to class?
Yes, you actually do have to bring this back. Okay, so the first page, you're going to put down your anxiety symptoms. Your personal anxiety symptoms. Okay, now hold on. I need everybody's eyes up here. Everybody's eyes up here. Lock in. The second page, you're going to find this the same chart. You're going to find 4 athletes and ask them these questions. I want a tally mark. Okay? So if Jonah is saying that he's got cold, clammy hands, and Noah is saying that he has cold, clammy hands, I'm going to write 2 tally marks. Okay? So what I want for the second page is I want the list of athletes that you interviewed and just put down tally marks for all their symptoms that they have. And then you need to come down here and answer these 2 questions after you have accumulated this data. Does that make sense?
So do we only use one column for the second one?
You're only doing the number of people checking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first page, you're only gonna put it on application
Yep.
to you, and then
Okay.
the second page
is
is only that.
Only them. Yeah. Okay. So real quick. Stop it. Sorry.
That is not one.
I want us to write down who we're all gonna have real quick.
Oh, this one.
So Roach, Z,
I
Austin,
can't see that.
McGee, and Eric. All right. So
Sam.
who do you want? Who do you want?
Skylar.
The other people on this campus,
Ruthie.
Ashlyn.
Me.
We all picked our roommates.
That's okay. That's okay. Austin,
Can I do Colby?
Colby.
Leah.
Hold on. Eric. Who do you?
Meech.
What?
Meech.
Meech. All right.
Is that how you spell it?
I'm just gonna rhyme to Meech.
Meech.
Roach.
Kim.
Okay.
I didn't think
Zamora?
so.
Yeah.
Remember, and not everybody has to choose people on the team. Austin.
Give me a moment. I'm trying to think. Can I do Haley even though she's in this class?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's in this class?
Oh yeah, she is in this class.
Can they be former athletes?
Yeah.
Eli.
Oh.
Eric.
Colson.
What?
Colson.
Colson. All right, Roach.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're killing me right now.
You said former athletes?
We can each do each other though, right? We can pick someone in class.
I would prefer not.
Okay.
Because I'm already gonna know like
Oh,
the
that's
chart.
true.
Yeah,
That's
for
true.
you. And that's true. Like maybe we
Lindy.
should do it, Haley.
Okay.
What?
You can
Lindy.
erase her.
Lindy? Okay.
But is Haley doing this assignment?
Yeah.
Oh.
What'd you say, Austin?
Can I just do Michaela?
Yep.
You skipped C.
Oh. Yep, I sure did. Zamora?
Uh.
It can be guys or girls, it doesn't matter.
Sorry.
I'm gonna write my own down so I don't forget.
Yeah, write yours down if you forget. Austin?
Do they have to be people you know or like? Yeah.
That's how you're gonna be able to ask the
Oh,
question.
No,
I'll
no,
do
that
Joe.
you know.
Joe.
Joe? Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say, Austin?
That you know. Like, can I do my brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Caden.
What?
Caden.
Caden?
Do they have to be in high school? Or can they play high school sports?
How many years ago?
Well, actually, my little brother's in 8th grade, but he's playing high school sports.
Kind of need some more extra
I'm color
years.
Okay.
Like her brother's a senior.
Yeah.
Eric? Well, I didn't know if you needed time to think.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, do it.
Okay, Eric?
Can I do my dad?
It's got to be within like the last 3 years. There's Noah, Jonah.
Ashlyn?
Who?
Ashlyn.
Ashlyn?
She's
She's already
already-
Ashlyn. Yeah.
She's in this class?
No,
Oh,
she's
she's
already
okay,
up
okay.
there.
Jonah.
Jonah. Anybody have their fourth one in their mind?
I'll do Ryan.
Ryan? Okay.
I'm gonna do my brother.
What is his status?
He's a high school senior.
Okay.
Braden.
Braden?
Sounds like a volleyball team.
Wait, you said they have to be in high school?
They have to have played 4 years of high school or be 3 years removed from a sport.
Can I change Lindy's?
Yeah?
Okay.
Damn, what can I do?
I'm gonna do a girl named Lily. She's a high school junior.
Okay.
Ellie?
That's my brother.
Ooh, Mackenzie.